both opportunities and challenges for today's security and economic landscape.
IPRI's national and international conferences and forums like the Ambassador Lecture Series, the media workshops and the Magla Dialogue provide an opportunity to work with the thought and media leaders of the world on a better future for our shared prosperity.
Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to all our guests and participants. Welcome to today's conference, a joint collaboration between the Islamabad Policy Research Institute, the Embassy of the Republic of Korea to Pakistan, and the Institute of Foreign Affairs and National Security. Our topic today will be centered on middle power countries' diplomacy on global issues, MIKTA and South Asian countries. We are fortunate today to be joined together in a hybrid fashion, with participants tuned in both physically and virtually. Before officially beginning the program, I would humbly request all participants to kindly take their seats and ensure their mobile phones are switched to silent mode. Thank you. We will now formally commence the event with recitation from the verses of the Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم هو الذي جعل الشمس ضياء والقمر نورا وقدره منازل لتعلموا عدد السنين والحساب ما خلق الله ذلك إلا بالحق يفصل الآيات لقوم يعلمون إن في اختلاف الليل والنهار وما خلق الله في السماوات والأرض لآيات لقوم يتقون
صدق الله العظيم.
Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me the honor of introducing those on stage. We are joined with His Excellency Ambassador Sir Sung-Pyo, the Ambassador of the Republic of Korea to Pakistan, Mr. Amir Hassan, Secretary of the National Security Division, Acting President Brigadier Rashid Wali Janjua, and Dr. Huma Bakai, Associate Professor at IBA and the moderator for today's event. I will now invite Acting President IPRI, Brigadier Rashid Wali Janjua, to please open the session.
Your Excellency, Mr. Sa Sang-yu, Ambassador Republic of Korea, Mr. Amir Hassan, Secretary National Security Division, Lieutenant General Naeem Lodi, former Defense Minister and Defense Secretary, Excellencies, Ambassadors of Australia, Indonesia, and Turkey. I extend a very warm welcome to all the dignitaries and participants of this seminar on behalf of Islamabad Policy Research Institute. Now, this seminar today is a brainchild of Ambassador of Republic of Korea and a seminar on middle power countries' diplomacy and global issues with special focus on MIKTA, that is Mexico, Indonesia, Korea, Turkey, and Australia, and South Asian countries, is being organized through the collaborative efforts of Embassy of Republic of Korea and the Islamabad Policy Research Institute to deliberate on the efficacy and role of middle power diplomacy in a world challenged by a new wave of competing global power alliances. We know that multilateral forces such as G20 and D8 in the past also owed their origin to these humble collaborative efforts. It is hoped that today's cogitation on the subject opens up new vistas of international collaboration through cross-regional consultative fora such as MIKTA. Full credit is due to Ambassador of Republic of Korea, His Excellency Sa Sang-yu, for initiating this idea of this seminar. He has introduced a concept worthy of the attention of the practitioners and students of international politics and diplomacy alike. Today's seminar comprises an introductory session, which would be followed by the main session featuring 3 presentations and panel discussions led by 3 distinguished panelists. The session would be moderated by Dr. Huma Bakai, Associate Professor of Social Sciences and Liberal Arts and Institute of Business Administration, Karachi, a well-known international relations expert and media analyst who will take on after the introductory session. I now invite His Excellency Sa Sang-yu to deliver his welcome remarks.
His Excellency Amir Hassan, Secretary of National Security Division, and Excellencies, Ambassadors from Turkey, Australia, and Indonesia. And right now, he's in the line, Special Representative of the Republic of Korea for Afghanistan and Pakistan, and Acting President of Islamabad Policy Research Institute, and distinguished participants. Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. It's my great pleasure to deliver remarks at the first seminar between Korean Institute of Foreign Affairs and National Security, called IFANS, and Islamabad Policy Research Institute, IPRI. First of all, I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude to IPRI for organizing this seminar wonderfully in cooperation with the embassy. I also appreciate all the support from the Foreign Ministry of the Republic of Korea with a high-level presence to this seminar. I'm particularly grateful to the National Security Division. As the acting president of IPRI, already said to me, this idea of a seminar comes from me, not actually comes from the NSD. So I fully appreciate of the support of the NSD. NSD has always been the strong supporter for think tank cooperation of the two countries. Since the establishment of diplomatic ties in 1983, relation between Korea and Pakistan has increased rapidly in all the areas such as trade, investment, culture, development, and people-to-people exchanges. However, think tank and academic exchanges, which establishes solid relations of the two countries through sharing thoughts and views, have not been so great as other areas are. In that sense, I hope this seminar will be a good and successful example of think tank cooperation, and based on this success, more initiatives will follow among think tanks of the two countries. As for the theme of today's seminar, Middle Power Countries Diplomacy on Global Issues, MIKTA and South Asian countries, is well selected since we can enlarge our understanding on how Korea and Pakistan respectively contribute to global issues and respond to geopolitics with other middle power countries. MIKTA, 5 countries gathering, Mexico, Indonesia, Korea, Turkey, and Australia, meet themselves and coordinate their positions in the occasions such as G20 Summit and UN General Assembly. I also have experience of MIKTA cooperation. When I was Korean sous-chef of the G20 Summit, before the summit, MIKTA countries discussed the agenda of G20, even though MIKTA countries could not reach exactly the same position on the agenda. However, through this collective action, MIKTA countries were able to contribute more to G20 agenda. Pakistan is a key player in the South Asian region and has contributed to the peace and prosperity of this region. Discussing cases of middle power diplomacies from MIKTA and Pakistan will make a synergy to strengthen our diplomacy and even find ways of cooperation between MIKTA and South Asian countries to address global issues. Once again, I thank all the organizers to successfully preparing this summit, this seminar, while observing strictly COVID-19 SOPs. And I express my sincere gratitude to all the contributions for the success of today's seminar, especially His Excellency Dr. Kim Jun-hyung, Chancellor of Korean National Diplomatic Academy, and His Excellencies Dr. Moed Yusuf, National Security Advisor of Pakistan, who gracefully sent us their video messages. This seminar is a kind of a track to discussion, so I hope all the speakers and participants enjoy the seminar and exchange their views in a relaxed and frank mode. Thank you. Shukriya.
Thank you, Ambassador. As we move forward with the program, I will invite our guest of honor, Mr. Amer Hassan, to deliver his remarks.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. His Excellency Mr. Su Sang-yu, Ambassador, Republic of Korea, Brigadier Rashid Wali Janjua, President IPRI, Dr. Humam Bakai, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. I am extremely grateful to Islamabad Policy Research Institute and the Korean Embassy for extending this invitation. It gives me real pleasure to speak at this august forum. As you are all aware, we are passing through a global transition. The pandemic has not only changed our lives, but also exposed global disparity and inequality. In this regard, today's topic is not only relevant, but also timely. Ladies and gentlemen, today even the most powerful countries cannot cope with the challenges confronting them and the world by themselves. Collective efforts are needed, and diplomacy is a key element in this process. When military theorist Karl von Clausewitz remarked in the early 1800s that war was a continuation of policy by other means, he sought to normalize the idea of war in modern politics. But his words also indicated that actions short of war are available to help states achieve their objectives. These are typically the actions of diplomats. Their work is often far less expensive, far more effective, and much more predictable. In fact, unlike centuries ago, when war was common, diplomacy today is the normal state of affairs governing international relations. In the modern era, diplomacy is conducted not only between nation-states, but also by a range of multilateral actors, such as the European Union and the United Nations. In the recent past, diplomatic arena was dominated by alliances and blocs. Throughout the Cold War, smaller states tried to remain relevant by joining large geopolitical blocs. As a result, the world was pushed towards ideological conflict. Today, however, the world has changed. The era of the bipolarity and unipolarity has ended, and we are entering into a multipolar world. Due to this, middle power countries need to exercise diplomacy. Middle powers today have a strong voice at the global international fora. They can leverage this to address issues like climate change, equitable trade and investment, debt relief, reforms at the UN, health emergencies, and regional natural disasters. The middle powers can also benefit through connectivity and economic opportunities to strengthen and consolidate their position in the existing world order. Speaking about the Pakistan and South Korean relations, both countries are without any doubt middle powers. These countries share similar democratic values. Pakistan and South Korea have long-standing diplomatic ties based on mutual respect and interest. A sizable number of Pakistani diaspora is also settled in South Korea and plays an active role in the development of the country. A number of South Korean companies have also invested in Pakistan, which is not only generating employment, but also adding value to the Pakistan economy. I was just mentioning to the ambassador that when I was Director General of Intellectual Property Organization of Pakistan, I visited South Korea. They have a Korean Intellectual Property Organization, and we realized that we need to strengthen our own IPR regime, and we are trying to do that if we want to bring more investment from Korea and other countries. The two countries, through effective diplomacy, can not only address the global issues, but could also play a role in resolving issues at the international fora. The middle powers need to join hands and formulate a strategy for effective diplomatic practices. The joint effort can lay the foundation of new norms in international politics, where middle powers can establish themselves as a center of mutual respect, cooperation, economic partnership, and above all, a symbol of international peace and prosperity. In the end, I would like to compliment the IPRI and Embassy of Republic of Korea for organizing this important seminar. I would love to continue here, but I have a very important engagement, so I beg leave. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We will now be hearing a series of video messages, the first of which is from Mr. Kim Jun-hyun, the Chancellor of Korea National Diplomatic Academy.
I am genuinely delighted to deliver a congratulatory message as the Chancellor of Korea National Diplomatic Academy at today's commemorative Korea-Pakistan MIKTA seminar. In 2011, the Institute of Foreign Affairs and National Security, IFANS, now re-established as KNDA, and Islamabad Policy Research Institute of Islamic Republic of Pakistan, IPRI, signed the General Arrangement for Cooperation. The signing of this arrangement was a very innovative and forward-looking decision, considering the global situation and the diplomatic landscape of Korea and Pakistan at the time. It is a bit late to arrange the first academic cooperation in 2021, a decade after signing the agreement. But I think the partnership of the KNDA and IRPI has been waiting for the best moment to shine. And today is the moment. I believe that KNDA-IPRI partnership and academic exchanges will make up for the decade's dormancy. Many changes have swept across the world since 2011. The national power of the countries has changed, and the new challenges have emerged both inside and outside the countries. Faced with new challenges, countries have sought new diplomatic and cooperative relations. Korea has developed middle power diplomacy to diversify diplomatic relations based on its growing national power. And in 2013, it established a mid-sized diplomatic group called MIKTA, with Mexico, Indonesia, Turkey, and Australia. MIKTA has drawn the world's attention from the beginning due to its potential and members representing their regions. Today's seminar shows that the world is watching MIKTA with unabated interest. Pakistan is an important country in Western Asia in terms of geographical location and national power. Pakistan's middle power diplomacy would bring political stability and economic prosperity to West Asia and further contribute to stability and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific region, which is becoming the center of global strategies. Now, Pakistan is taking the first step in its middle power diplomacy by constructing a national identity as a middle power and forging partnership with other middle powers. KNDA-IRPI's academic cooperation is anticipated to help Korea, MIKTA, and Pakistan exchange ideas on middle power diplomacy, increase their capabilities, and increase the impact of Korea, MIKTA, and Pakistan's middle power diplomacy on the world stage. Congratulations again on KNDA-IRPI's first step to deepen cooperation after a long wait, and I hope that there will be a tangible result in diplomacy of the two countries, with keen interest and active discussions generated at today's seminar. Thank you very much.
Message from Dr. Moeed Yusuf, National Security Advisor of Pakistan.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning. It gives me immense pleasure to congratulate the Islamabad Policy Research Institute, the Institute of Foreign Affairs and National Security of the Republic of South Korea, and the Embassy of the Republic of South Korea for organizing this seminar on middle power countries' diplomacy on global issues. Connecting intellectual spaces leads to generation of ideas and out-of-the-box solutions to the problems coming from civil society, think tanks, and academia. And I'm glad that the leading think tanks of our two countries are beginning to do exactly that, coming together and setting up intellectual discourse on important regional and global issues. This seminar couldn't come at a better time. We are now witnessing new emerging global and regional challenges that our countries are confronted with. This should in fact be a regular feature of the think tanks of our two countries, and I expect such interactions between other think tanks of our two sides as well. It should not be a one-off event for sure. Later on, we could even develop coordination to bring together and hold track 2 dialogues between think tanks of the 2 countries. I once again congratulate all of you for organizing this seminar. I am sure it will go a long way in establishing intellectual linkages between our 2 countries. I look forward to an insightful discussion and productive outcome of the seminar for both our countries. And I would request that the event report be shared with my office so that we can also benefit from your findings. Once again, thank you very much and congratulations. Assalamu alaikum.
We will now be hearing congratulatory remarks from Mr. Ham Sang-uk, the Deputy Minister of Multilateral and Global Affairs.
Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to today's seminar on middle power countries' diplomacy on global issues. I express my appreciation to the Islamabad Policy Research Institute and our embassy in Pakistan for inviting me to deliver the welcoming remark. As Korea's senior official in charge of MIKTA, I would like to take this opportunity to provide you a brief introduction to MIKTA and highlight how MIKTA has contributed to ramping up global cooperation and strengthening multilateralism. Let me begin with an overview on MIKTA's history. In 2013, MIKTA was launched on the sidelines of the 68th session of the UN General Assembly when the 5 foreign ministers from Mexico, Indonesia, Korea, Turkey, and Australia joined together for a new partnership group. MIKTA members are democracies and open economies, with all coming under the G20 umbrella. Given that all the 5 countries share such core values, the members agreed that a new consultative platform would be helpful for accomplishing more constructive cooperation among the members. After successfully establishing itself as a ministerial-level platform, our predecessors laid the groundwork by articulating their shared vision in 2015 and agreeing on a set of operational guidelines in 2017. Building on this firm foundation, MIKTA has accumulated an impressive track record in less than 8 years, including 18 foreign ministers' meetings, 11 senior officials' meetings, and 6 parliamentary speakers' consultations. Moreover, during Korea's MIKTA chairmanship last year, my president delivered the first ever MIKTA head of state level statement, which reaffirmed the group's determination for promoting global solidarity and showcased our shared resolve to address global challenges. Moving on, I now want to highlight the 3 ways how MIKTA has contributed and will further contribute to promoting international cooperation. First, given the geographic diversity of each members, MIKTA is capable of complementing the ascending regionalism. Our strategic location allows each member to become a catalyst for facilitating the nearby regional countries to join global dialogues. Besides, thanks to MIKTA's cross-regional nature, the group has the potential to bring solutions and alternatives to the table in both within and between the regional groups, as well as on a range of regional and global issues. Second, MIKTA can serve as a bridge between developed and developing countries, countering the trend to retreat into unilateralism. With MIKTA and its members reaffirming support for and making active contributions to multilateral institutions and initiatives, we are ensuring that these multilateral tools remain strong and effective in dealing with global challenges. Third, MIKTA continues to broaden its networks by continuously expanding the scope of cooperation, setting an exemplary model for the international community. Last year, MIKTA made further progress on diversifying its dialogue channels, including the launch of networks among our health ministries, ministries in charge of women's affairs, and the development cooperation agencies. For an agile response to the COVID-19 pandemic, we also arranged a unique 2+2 channel that brings together the 5 countries' foreign affairs and health officials to share best practices for an effective disease response. Such multiple layers of cooperation mechanisms within the group will allow MIKTA to continue its role as an innovative partnership to champion inclusive and effective multilateralism. Ladies and gentlemen, the nearly 8-year history of MIKTA demonstrates that a shared vision for strengthening multilateralism can transcend national differences and diversities. MIKTA's voice now resonates on various international fora, including the UN and WHO. Likewise, I hope today's seminar will bring insights for Pakistan and other South Asian middle powers to find ways to build more effective network channels for assuming increased roles in the multilateral system. I thank you very much.
Now please allow me to invite Mr. Lee Kyung-chul, Special Representative of the Republic of Korea for Afghanistan and Pakistan, as he joins us virtually for his special speech.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I think so, yes, you're audible, sir.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a long speech, just a short statement. Good morning, Excellencies and ladies and gentlemen. Allow me, first of all, to thank the IPRI and the ROK Embassy in Islamabad for organizing today's event. On a personal note, I have a direct experience of tackling global issues together with Pakistan and a MIKTA country named Australia in a highly intensive manner for the whole year of 2013, as 3 of us were serving together in the UN Security Council as elected members. And Embassy in Thailand being my counterpart. Even now, I keep true admiration of the great role played by both the Pakistani and Australian delegations at the Security Council. Just 3 points to make regarding today's topic. First, middle power countries, by definition, are not strong or big enough to create or transform an international order, as super or great powers might be. Rather, we pursue our national interests with a great sense of determination, while at the same time playing our part to maintain a peaceful, stable and fair world order within our space of maneuvering. The Republic of Korea, for example, has benefited greatly from an international setting embracing democracy and free trade that has been in place for the last several decades, on its path of emerging as the country it is today. Second, in dealing with global issues, the fact that we are in the middle can prove to be a strength. We are largely free from historical liabilities or regional animosities any global reaches in the past could entail. And we can offer to those who in poverty, conflict or other dire conditions an embodiment of hope, as we ourselves understand firsthand what it is like to be in such a predicament. And finally, it is important that middle powers share information and seek to form a solidarity, issue by issue, in this way ensuring that our voices are heard and have more weight in the international community. I look forward to today's discussions offering some fruitful reflections on how MIKTA can build effective outreach to other middle power countries on the path ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Now please allow me to invite Mr. Sung-Yu, Ambassador of the Republic of Korea for Afghanistan and Pakistan, as he joins us virtually for his special speech. Thank you. I thank all of our guests and participants once again for being here with us today. We will now move forward with the main session. For that, I will request the panelists of the main session, our respectable ambassadors, Mr. Jeffrey Shaw, High Commissioner of the Commonwealth of Australia, His Excellency Adam Mulawan Tugio, the Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia, and His Excellency Ihsan Mustafa Yurdako, the Ambassador of the Republic of Turkey, to please move forward to the stage. The Senator will also join us very shortly. In commencing with the main session, from here onwards, I will hand over the proceedings to the moderator of today's event, Dr. Huma Bakar.
To moderate this event, I actually had to, jog my memory and find out what all of this is about. And then I realized that it was not only a concept which goes back to 1918, but also something which has become extremely important in what we call, or we may dare to call, post-COVID-19 world. So the issues of global health and the issues of climate change are superseding other issues. And this particular governance club, if I may call it that, is 7+ years old, and it has done reasonably well. But I'm going to actually quote Jeffrey Robertson, who's a barrister of human rights and an author and a journalist. And he sort of encapsulates it beautifully. He says, MIKTA has achieved less than optimist envisioned, lasted longer than pessimist imagined. And I think that is important to understand, because with many other clubs out there, many other governance clubs out there, MIKTA is comparatively new. The concept of middle powers impacting global politics in a very competitive, cutthroat world is also difficult to embrace or give due importance. And it is time that countries like Pakistan and the countries who are a part of this club come together to highlight the importance of these powers and the fact that they have the capacity and the capability to impact international relations in a fashion which can act as bridge building and as mediators and facilitators. And these are issues that this world desperately needs. So with that curtain raiser, which was much more beautifully done by people who spoke on the event just before me, and I think IPRI should be congratulated for this, because it's about reviving something which has somehow taken a backseat in our minds because of this hardcore superpower competition, which is again re-emerging. People are talking about a second Cold War, and they're talking about how South Asia may become the theater of that. And in that perspective, I think the role of middle powers should be celebrated and cultivated. And the fact that you need an intellectual discourse on it before a policy impact happens is extremely crucial, and that's exactly what IPRI is doing. So all congratulations to IPRI. I have the honor and pleasure of introducing two of our presenters. One of them will join us virtually, and we are hoping Senator Mushahid Hussain is going to join us shortly. So please bear with me. I'm going to introduce Professor, Institute of Foreign Affairs and National Security, Korea National Diplomatic Academy. Madam Sinjoy Kang, who's a professor of IFANS of KNDA, a branch of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Korea. Prior to joining this institute in 2007, she taught political science at the University of North Texas. Her research centers on the issues of global governance. No wonder she's with us, international financial institutions, and foreign aid. She received her PhD in political science from Michigan State University in 2000. She also has a BA in international relations and MA in political science from Seoul National University in Korea. Her academic research was published in European Journal of Political Research 2007, the Journal of Politics 2005, and the Journal of Peace Research 2004. Ladies and gentlemen, she will join us virtually, and I will hold the introduction of the Senator until he joins us. So can we please have it? Are we connecting with her? That's how we're doing it?
It is my honor on behalf of the Institute of Foreign Affairs and National Security to take part in a seminar with the Islamabad Policy Research Institute. Recently, two phenomena have stood out in international relations. One is interstate relations fracture. The other is transnational challenges like climate change. Since the 2010s, rivalry between the United States and China has been a central feature of the international system, and the recent COVID-19 pandemic has intensified it. United States-China competition, more aggressive use of geopolitical influence, and growing nationalism are fueling shifts from a rules-based to a power-based international order. And transnational challenges spare no country. No individual country, regardless of governance and wealth, is perfectly equipped to address the mounting economic and environmental risks. In this geopolitical context, it is critical that middle power countries exercise leadership to restore stability and cooperation. Without middle powers' influence, geopolitical fragmentation and economic fragility will increase further. Disruption will become more frequent, and progress on shared goals will be delayed. Middle powers are loosely defined as countries that rank in the top 30 global economies with more or less $1 trillion gross domestic product and pose minimal military threat to their neighbors. Middle powers are states that lack superpower status, but individually or collectively have the potential to forge a more stable, sustainable, and cooperative balance of power and make influential roles in over the past 2 decades in the international space to be filled with innovative collaborations, where transnational challenges like successful global governance structures and inclusive partnerships in order to earn back trust where it has declined. Or middle powers could facilitate under the rubric of common goal challenge. Were exchanged. In strict terms. The other great power encouraged the MIKTA from initiating and forging cooperation for global issues. The other factor for the downturn was with MIKTA itself. Ideas and resources to support them with it. It was hard for MIKTA to make breakthroughs in global issues and play a role in bringing major stakeholders together. And suddenly, the COVID-19 pandemic descended upon us. International relations look different from those of the pre-pandemic era. Among other things, the coronavirus pandemic has increased the uncertainty about leadership. The pandemic has inflicted damage on the leadership of the United States and China. China's trustworthiness is in doubt, and on the other hand, the United States' willingness to lead the world is in question. While it remains to be seen how the United States and China will restore their respective leadership, the post-COVID-19 world likely opens window for MIKTA to practice middle-power entrepreneurship. Especially if the United States and China choose to mix cooperation and competition in their relations, MIKTA would be able to play a bridging role in global issues. Further, of the two great powers, the United States is more likely to reach out to MIKTA because the United States has a vested interest in preserving the post-World War II international order. About the future of MIKTA in the post-pandemic era, there is one caveat though. While an opportunity for MIKTA looms on the horizon in the post-pandemic era, it will depend on MIKTA's own readiness to utilize such opportunity. An array of preparations must be executed on the part of MIKTA to harness the opportunities produced by the pandemic. MIKTA's preparations for the post-pandemic international relations involve three elements. First, Mexico, Indonesia, Korea, Turkey, and Australia need to renew their commitment to MIKTA as a group. Domestically, economic downturn from the pandemic is accelerating a greater pivot inward for the MIKTA countries as they seek to maintain domestic political and social stability. Such economic pressures and deepening nationalism could result in the MIKTA countries' unwillingness or inability to contribute to global issues. Second, the 5 MIKTA countries need to apply resources, establishing an organizational platform for their actions. This may mean that MIKTA needs to move from being a standalone consultation body to being anchored to a multilateral institution. Lastly, MIKTA needs to set up a strategy for building common understanding with the key actors on global issues by investing resources and ideas for a sustained period of time. The future of MIKTA in the post-pandemic era will depend on how well the MIKTA countries go through this exercise. Sorry for the noise in the background. I will pause for a moment. I apologize for the background noise and for the pausing for a while. Thank you for your understanding. Okay. As a conclusion, a middle-powered moment may have arrived with the COVID-19 pandemic. The deepening of geopolitical fault lines may constrain middle-power's capacity to cultivate connections with a diverse set of partner countries based on mutual values and maximizing efficiencies. However, paradoxically, it is also possible that demand from the world for middle power diplomacy may rise in the post-pandemic international relations because they are aware that weakened middle powers could lead to more uncertainty and lagging progress on shared global challenges of our time and future generations. Thus, if numerous middle powers, including Pakistan and Korea, can sustain their diplomatic efforts in the post-pandemic era, they will, to a certain degree, to a certain extent, be able to shape the post-pandemic international order. It will be in middle powers' interest to forge multilateral partnerships among themselves and make sure that the post-pandemic international order reflects shared but clearly defined responsibilities across the countries. Thank you.
Understanding what Madam had to say, but it was definitely a curtain raiser on MIKTA, had a futuristic approach to it. She outlined that, and towards the end, she talked about how it could have an impact on South Asia, both India and Pakistan. I congratulated IPRI, but I also need to thank the Embassy of Korea for both facilitating this particular event and bringing us, all of us here together to deliberate upon it. So thank you. With that, we're still waiting for Senator Mushahid Hussain Syed to join us. He's busy in a Senate Committee on Defense, and we'll be very happy to have him as soon as he comes in. Now, I have three very eminent panelists here. We have Mr. Edum Togio, Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia in Islamabad, Mr. Ehsan, Ambassador of the Republic of Turkey in Islamabad, and Mr. Jeffrey Shaw, High Commissioner of the Commonwealth of Australia in Islamabad. So, Mr. Adam, if I may start with you. You have 5 minutes to give your take on this issue, and after each one of you have had 5 minutes each, we're going to open this session for a discussion.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Huma. Let me first express our appreciations to Ambassador Sunspro and also the IPRI for the initiative to host this event. It's certainly an honor for me to participate in this event, to share Indonesia's perspective and my own observations with regard to the MIKTA. I think the deputy ministers of Republic of Korea and its chancellors of the Korean Diplomatic Academy already mentions the rationale or rationalité, the main considerations of the establishments of the MIKTA. Suffice to say that MIKTA wants to be a bridge builder and the agenda setters in the changing global order. In doing so, we are using the flexibilities and the issue-oriented approach. I think the fluidities of the global powers dynamic nowadays, which raises the complex global problems, provide the rooms for the middle powers to contribute. And I think one of the speakers also mentioned is that the middle power, we are weak in terms of we don't have, a power like, a superpower. So that's why we need to work together, join hand in promoting the global cause, the promoting the multilateralisms and the issues of shared conscience. And I think in this regard, if I may outline some of the very important elements why MIKTA is unique, because I think this is very important. You mentioned that very few literatures available on the MIKTA notice, but I think it is factual because in terms of this club, it's relatively new. But I think there are some of the important elements which underscores the importance of MIKTA. First, I think the MIKTA has injected cross-regionalism. It is a consultative platform whereby, the possible members of the MIKTA may work together in the issues of their concerns. And in doing so, the MIKTA provides a global networking, hub of global networking, whereby we can work together in promoting issues of their concerns. And in this regard, I think if you look at the joint statement of the foreign ministers on the MIKTA, I guess, although probably some may criticize because there's lack of focus, but if you look at the joint statements, although some addressing the issues of security, international securities, but 2/3 of the joint statements also relate with the SDG. So I think the SDG, fulfillment of the SDG is one of the main objectives of the MIKTA, whereby we work together in trying, once again, to remind and also emphasize the international community to work together in meetings, the SDG. And in this regard, I think it's provide a room for collaborations with Pakistan and other middle power, because I guess it is not only MIKTA's interest of global community on the meeting of the SDG. Another issue which I think also provide the opportunity for MIKTA to collaborate with Pakistan and other countries, also on the issues of climate change. MIKTA, which the aspirations to become bridge builders and also global setters, can contribute in making a voluntary pledge to reduce the carbon emissions. And I think all the countries of the MIKTA already made a commitment. Indonesia and our sides, we already made a commitment to reduce by 29% on 2030s. Business as usual, but with the international community, we hope that we would be able to reduce the carbon emissions by 40%. So I think this is a common goals which MIKTA as individual countries may contribute in setting the standard and encourage more the international community to make a voluntary pledge in reducing the carbon emissions. The third element is also MIKTA. If you look at the compositions of the countries, some represent developed countries, while others developing countries. But it is very interesting to note that all the MIKTA members of the clubs, they now have the Organizations of Developing Agencies, so ODA. Indonesia just launched the ODA also. I think this is then very important also, whereby that MIKTAs can work together with other countries in trying to meet the objective of the shared concerns. And I think the fourth element, which is very important, because MIKTA is flexible, so we don't have an institutionalized secretariat, for instance, but the flexibilities actually provide a room for maneuver for us. And I think with that, the MIKTA individual countries that can come up with the expertise, the area of their expert. For instance, Mexico on financings of development. Mexico then become, a main focus on this, whereby the other MIKTA members, then, we can add voice to the concerns raised by Mexico. Also Turkey it lists developing countries. So MIKTA also can join voice on that. And in this regard, the latest examples also on the humanitarian sphere, whereby MIKTA also once again add voice to the importance of giving protections for the situations that need to have the international cooperation. Let alone also on the COVID, whereby once again MIKTA also add voice on the importance of sharing best practices, lessons learned in addressing of the COVID challenges. So that's some of the elements which I think MIKTA can play roles together with other countries.
Role for a region like South Asia with its demography and the fact that it's struggling with vaccination. So is there a role that middle powers have there? So a word on that, and then perhaps you two can also elaborate on that.
Yeah, I think it's very coincidence also because Indonesia for the time being co-chairs of the COFAC, the foreign minister is together with Canadians and I guess the foreign ministers of one countries in the Africa, also co-chairs of the COFAC, and we work together with the international community on how to ensure the equal access for the COVID vaccines, because I think it is a global consensus whereby nowadays we are need to work together in ensuring that everyone is everyone is safe by having the vaccines. Although probably the numbers is not equals, but I think all countries also deserves to have vaccines. So because we believe that no one is safe until everyone is safe.
Thank you so much. Now may I request Mr. Ehsan Mustafa, Ambassador of the Republic of Turkey in Islamabad, to say his words, his point.
Thank you, Madam. But first I would like to make sure that everybody understands me, because I had great difficulty even to understand my colleague when he's speaking with this highly amplified,
Would you like to use this mic?
I can either use that or from the roster.
Combustible, Excellency.
May I try?
I think, hello? Yeah, I think that, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your participation to this important event. I want to extend my greetings to all my colleagues, all those, attending from virtual world, let me say, and those who are present here real time. Ma'am, actually, I was planning to, because all the speakers touched upon MIKTA, its past, its present, and its future activities. Your point was one of the points that I planned to, initially to touch upon. Actually, I will, with your permission, touch upon two things. One is post-COVID environment, what MIKTA can do, should do, MIKTA countries. And the second one is, what is this rule-based international order, which is the talk of the town, lately, and what MIKTA countries can do to further this idea, or how to contribute to that idea. And I would also have some connections with Pakistan and MIKTA countries' relationship on that. Post-COVID world will be a difficult world. I mean, evidently. There will be challenges. There will be challenges starting with the health sector, health systems. They are under huge pressure. Vaccination is trying to take its pace, but we cannot say that we are 100% satisfied with the pace of the global vaccination initiatives. There will be pressures on the sustainable development goals, apparently. There will be pressure on the gender equality. There will be pressures, there are already pressures about working environments, labor, and the flexible working hours, and those who are outside of labor market. So what we have at hand in the post-COVID world will be a complicated one, and all those very pertinent and, I should say, very basic questions. We'll ask for some answers from all of us. What MIKTA countries can do in that sense is that, you know, being an interface between different groups of countries, I think MIKTA has a role to play here. And being G20 countries, all five of it, MIKTA can successfully do this interface responsibility in the days and years to come. My second point would be the, you know, rule-based international order. I think what MIKTA can do in that sense is to bring the countries together for a, first of all, common definition. What rule-based international order mean? Because almost each and every country understands something different from this phenomenon, if I may put it that way. And those in MIKTA, I think we have a similar understanding, at least, you know, on the certain parameters about what this rule-based system, international system means and how we can develop that. So that's another point, that's another sphere that MIKTA can play an important role. Again, being the character that it has, you know, being the interface with different groupings globally. Rule-based system also, you know, in my humble opinion, is something that Pakistan is also after. I mean, a recent example that I can, you know, give in this sense is Pakistan's dossier or Pakistan's relationship within the FATF. So rule-based international systems, international organization working on the basis of rules. The more they work efficiently, the more countries like Pakistan would benefit from that, and the more the sense of justice and equitability and righteousness would be more come to the surface if we really can emphasize this and understand the basics of this rule-based system. Well, thank you very much. I think these 2 points that I need to make is enough at this point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. Good luck with the definition part, because in the international community, we are struggling with the definition of what is a middle power to begin with, and then we're struggling with the definition of what is terrorism and who is a terrorist. And now you're saying that we do have it or we don't have it. I personally think rule-based political order in this competitive world is just yet another cliched paradigm. But good luck on that one. And I think countries like ours, middle power countries, countries like Pakistan need it more than others. With that, I'm going to request our friend from Australia to say a few things. This is Mr. Jeffrey Shaw, High Commissioner of Peace from Australia and Islamabad. Thank you for joining us, sir, and it's over to you.
Well, thank you very much, and colleagues, Assalamu alaikum. It's great to be here. Let me join with others thanking the Embassy of Korea and the Islamabad Policy Research Institute for organising today. I think my colleague from Turkey identified, and as you have, the issue and the problems of coming up with definitions. And the comments we're going to make today is not trying to define, but probably give some practical examples of how we're working as MIKTA on this rules-based order. So let me start by giving Australia's perspective when it comes to MIKTA. And I think the great value that we see from MIKTA is that it's flexible, it's diverse, and it's cross-regional grouping of powers that promote our common objectives in supporting multilateral cooperation. And as you said, this rules-based order. We see MIKTA also as a forum for exchanging views on addressing global challenges. Our cross-regional composition allows us to build consensus by working with partners in our respective regions to magnify our influence. And I think the role is arguably more important, as you've already heard discussed today, as the world responds to the COVID pandemic and the economic challenges that poses. I think this value was highlighted by MIKTA, and to the credit of our colleagues from the Republic of Korea, that in 2020, MIKTA leaders made their first joint statement at the UN General Assembly on the importance of a functioning multilateral system with the UN at the core. Our global environment continues to be characterised by uncertainty, unprecedented global challenges, and intensifying geostrategic competition. Multilateral institutions are under strain, including agencies like the World Trade Organization and the World Health Organization. Some are struggling to fulfill their mandates, and COVID-related operating practices have made it even more difficult to be transparent. MIKTA countries, with our shared interest to continue collective support of an effective, open and transparent multilateral system, which is accountable to member states. One way MIKTA has traditionally done this is by issuing joint statements in multilateral forums. For example, MIKTA's joint statement on COVID during the 74th World Health Assembly highlighted that MIKTA remains steadfast in its commitment to work with the WHO and the broader multilateral system in supporting the global response to the pandemic. And MIKTA's highest priority going forward is to ensure that our multilateral institutions are fit for purpose, effective, transparent, accountable, and equipped to respond to the global challenges, such as novel disease outbreaks. Through MIKTA, we will continue to advocate for rules that protect sovereignty, preserve peace, curb excessive use of power, and enable trade and investment. We'll also continue to advocate for the norms that underpin universal human rights, gender equality, and the rule of law. So how does this relate to Pakistan? It's clear that the objectives, the values that MIKTA espouse on the international stage coincide with those of Pakistan.
Thank you so much. And I'm grateful that all three of you mentioned Pakistan and the support that you give us. It is of value to Pakistan, and it is, of course, we appreciate it. Now, I will open the floor for question answers if there are any. The fact remains that MIKTA represents 500 million people and 10% of world trade. So it is not something small. And they will and can play a very important role in a world which is, like my friend, Excellency from Australia correctly pointed out, in a world which is very geostrategically competitive. But what I also want to put on the floor is that are we moving towards a world which is more geared towards geoeconomics? And will this crisscross of geoeconomics and geopolitics will give club governance and clubs like MIKTA more importance and prominence in days to come, and the fact that their role cannot be ignored. If there are any questions, we'd love to have them. I don't know if the senator is joining us. I met people who have served in Korea, so if there are questions from them. Unfortunately, Senator Mushahid Hussain Syed won't be joining us because he has a commitment, couldn't get out of it. So we'll open the floor for Q&A now. I have a question, and perhaps that will trigger more. I mean, we've heard a lot about it, but actually, do you see the role of middle powers if they come together? And not just MIKTA, but other middle powers also collaborating, making them more prominent, more eminent, more influential in times to come. And whatever is happening in the world today, where a defining theme in the post-COVID-19 world is the rising competition between China and the United States of America, and I like to use the word competition and not confrontation. So, your take.
Interesting questions. I think one of the advantages of having a club of middle club, because it's create a habit of dialogue, habit of collaborations. And since we are now facing a global, complex problem, as my colleague already mentioned, then there is imperative for all countries to work together. And if we work individual countries, we can do that. But I think it will give more power. The rationale will be more help if the middle powers works together, and by selecting issues of shared concerns. Nowadays, the issues may comprise of the economic developments, the climate change, or even the political security issues like, the counterterrorism or countering violent extremisms. So I think we have to select those one or two priorities which actually is very important for the global community. And I think I raised one of the, I mentioned the issues of the global climate change, for instance, because this year we will have Glasgow meetings whereby there is a lot of expectations of the global community to take concrete actions in terms of reducing, the emissions of carbon. So I think that would create the ample opportunity for the countries, the middle power, if we work together. And once again, by creating an example, despite of limitations that we have, the middle power also can take it by giving an example how we make a commitment to reduce voluntarily global carbon emissions. And it may also apply to different items.
Look, thank you. And I agree with the comments that my colleague from Indonesia has said. As diplomats from middle power countries, of course we think we can make a difference. That's our job. And I think where we add together, we each bring our unique perspectives to problems that are on the table. But by working together, we can make a difference. And I think we see that in the United Nations. By working together, we make a difference. We build coalitions of support on action, on issues of high priority, no matter what they are. And they're broad, and we've been doing this since 2013. So yes, we make a difference as a middle power.
Thank you for the good perspective from the ambassadors. So, like Ambassador Indonesia, I worked for the long years for the multilateral issues. For example, G20 and UN and OECD. There are many superpower. There are superpower countries included in that multilateral format platform. So one superpower country can say one position make sound by itself, but middle power country, even though they speak up in the format, without any consent or that agreement co-sounding from the middle power country, that voice is small. So middle power diplomacy, in the sense of multilateral diplomacy, I guess that's very important. Our voice can make the bigger than by itself, by myself. That's why that we started MIKTA initiative. I remember that when the MIKTA started, I was one of the engineering that initiatives. And another point is that build power or the MIKTA initiative, even though it works well, but not so much than we thought, because we have many global issues. For example, climate change issues. We think that the 5 countries supposed to have the same opinion on that, but actually when we talk to each other, when we discuss each other, we have a slightly different opinion on that one global issue. So when we make our common, when we make our common common position on the global issues, that level is down and almost small, the low level position on that global issues. But still, that it works when we speak up together. So unfortunately, today we don't have a Pakistani expert to explain us that how the Pakistan is doing middle power diplomacy here, because that Pakistan is the regionally very key player here, and there are many regional issues. So Pakistani diplomacy is doing best for their goal. So sometimes I know that they connect with same size or that same power country. Like here is one, the Turkey, and the other country. So that kind of middle power diplomacy will help this country also. So Pakistan can get some lesson from that MIKTA countries' diplomacy, and MIKTA countries also can some lesson from that Pakistan is what is Pakistan is doing for their obtain that their address their regional issues, global issues. So anyway, that today's seminar, thanks to that ambassadors, we are still have a good discussion, but a little I'm a little regret of that. We need more share that about that Pakistani and this region's middle power diplomacy. Maybe you can add that as a moderator. Thank you.
Well, Pakistan's foreign policy is now sort of stated it out. We do not want to be recognized as an entirely geopolitical state. We want a geo-economic state, and there are 2 keywords that are being identified for Pakistan's foreign policy. One is balance, and the other is connectivity. And a lot of what is happening is being drawn from that. But Mr. Mustafa, I'd like you to comment on what His Excellency just said. The consensus and not that much of a consensus within MIKTA. Is that holding MIKTA back?
Well, my biggest problem today is to understand the questions. If I understand you correctly, I think the essence of the question is that the consensus.
There is a consensus on issues,
yeah,
but there is also differences, which is fantastic.
Well,
because that's
normal.
value of dissent.
Well, as I said in my presentation, all of us, all these MIKTA countries, we are also G20 countries, and in G20, not everyone is seeing each other eye to eye, and but what makes our group different is that we have the capacity to act as an interface between different groupings, different blocks, different countries. We can reach out to the least developed nations easily, but at the same time, I mean, through G20 and through other means, we can also have the ears of the the prominent countries of the world. This is what makes us different, and in the days and years to come, I think our character, this character, will be much more important, because there will be bigger need. I mean, I'm not a fortune teller, but I mean, if my senses are...
There's more need for sanity. Is that what you're saying, Excellency?
No, what we will be witnessing is that there will be a huge demand for countries like MIKTA countries to, come to the fore and, to make the things running smoothly between those most powerful and those whose voices are heard least. I think we are very well positioned for that, and I think we are all willing to do that in a successful manner. Since I had the microphone, may I ask for your permission to, leave, since I had another commitment?
We're sort of rounding up. It's over.
Thank you.
If there are no questions from the plenary, I will...
I'm not a moderator, but I guess that still that Korean professor, IPAS, she's still online, maybe, and also a special representative of Afghanistan and Pakistan of Korean ministry. Maybe you can ask, they have something to say.
No, we are very grateful for the fact that they joined us. In fact, we are grateful for all our panelists who've joined us. Yeah, absolutely. I am going to not make you wait for your lunch anymore. So all I'm going to end up with is more power to middle powers. Thank you all. We have them online? Do we have our panelists online? Can we please have them? Yes. Oh, thank you, Professor, and thank you. If you'd like to add something to the discussion that just took place, if you'd like to say a word, we'd be very happy to hear from you.
I don't think I have to say anything further. I mean, all the panelists on the stage, made good comments or answers to the questions brought from the floor. As ambassadors from Turkey and Australia, Indonesia, and the Republic of Korea said, the post-pandemic international relations will be different from the pre-pandemic international relations. And the differences between pre- and post-pandemic international relations will make things difficult for middle powers, but at the same time will make things easier for middle powers, because there will be more expectation of and demand for the middle powers, given the difficulties the two great powers facing addressing global issues. So the post-pandemic international relations, I think, I would stay rather optimistic about middle power diplomacy in the post-pandemic era. That's what I can say, and that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Couldn't agree with you. Lee, if you'd like to add a word, and also perhaps just one word, just a few lines about how middle powers can help the peace process in Afghanistan. The situation in Afghanistan, we talked about that.
Just in one sentence, I've learned a lot from today's meeting. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Lunch is waiting. I'm going to say this one more time. More power to middle powers. Oh, there's a question? I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. Please go ahead. Of course. Please, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. I'm Asif Durrani. I'm former ambassador, right now working as senior research fellow with IPRI, Islamabad Policy Research Institute. Very illuminating discussion indeed. I wondered if I have understood correctly this MIKTA. Is it a precursor to a non-aligned setting which we saw during the Cold War period when we had former Soviet Union and the United States, and right now we see it as United States versus China, and then the setting is, in a way, although it is still not an even-handed approach vis-a-vis United States attitude and blaming China for that. It's not that Pakistan is a friend to China, but I think the United States itself abandoned multilateralism. So keeping that in view, should we can we say that this MIKTA is a precursor to a new non-aligned movement? Because for all practical purposes, even now the NAM is almost paralyzed, if not dead. Thank you.
So who would like to respond to that?
The short answer is no.
Well, it's not actually it's very hard to respond to the question. Because you see, I'm just a moderator, but probably my take would be that this new Cold War, if there is a new Cold War, there are no firewalls, there are no ideological divides. So it's hard to say if this is a precursor to that. Perhaps a better thing would be that it is what Excellency Mr. Mustafa just said, that it is to bring stability and sanity to global governance if superpower rivalries reach a point that you need that to happen. That's how I see it. Please, if you'd like to comment on that.
Just to underscore that what we work together, MIKTA, is promoting the multilateralism strategy. The UN is a core basic norm that should be promoted. So every disagreement that might arise in the global politics, and we should once again refer to the UN, how the UN evolved, in producing the global norm. This is something that we work together. Not only MIKTA, but I guess the majority of international communities are works toward promoting the global government through the UN as the core.
It's about multilateralism, it's about rule of law, it's rooted in the United Nations. But more importantly, the concept has been around since the 18th century. And it has been consolidated after the First World War and then the Second World War. And then more recently, when countries like Canada and Sweden sort of embraced this. So I think it's something which brings stability and sanity to the system. That's how I see it. Thank you all. Thank you for joining us.
This brings us to the close of the event. I just want to thank and extend a generous thanks to all our dignitaries, guests, and participants for joining us. You may please join us for lunch now. Thank you.